when we talk about a metaverse or a foodverse, that chef gets a chance to actually get global exposure, interact with global audiences, and have that chance where tomorrow they can actually see that okay, they seem to have developed an Australian fan following, so they can consider doing a pop-up restaurant in Australia, or having a metaverse experience for the fans there.
Greetings, everybody. It's me, Bryn from MarketSquare.io, and I am here today with Suprit Raju of OneRare. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. Thank you.
It's only a pleasure. It's wonderful to have you with us. So, first things first, introductions. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your journey into crypto, your background, anything that gives us a little bit more insight into who you are.
So I'm actually from a design background. I'm a designer by education, and for the last 10 years, I've been basically working with companies and with projects to kind of help ease adoption with the use of good design. So I came into the blockchain industry in 2018, and actually my co-founder is also my husband, and he got into the industry first, and that's why it's kind of like an all-in-one project for us here at OneRare. But essentially, I mean, he started in the blockchain sector, and I kind of started looking into the opportunities here. And I'm a strong believer that good design can lead to massive adoption in this industry. So my journey has been largely about that and creating simple and effective design. And that's how we kind of came to OneRare, because as NFTs started becoming a topic at the beginning of 2021, my God, feels like a year has gone by. But at that point of time, we started thinking about what it is that we can do with all that we know about the industry. And that's how OneRare sort of came to be. And that's where we are today, working on the world's first foodverse.
All right. So, NFTs and food is what it's all about today. How did the concept for a food metaverse, or as you call it, a foodverse, come about?
Actually, when we started, like I said, it was in identifying a theme that everybody could relate to. At the beginning of the year, there was so much about blockchain and technology that was so hard to understand. Even now, if somebody wants to go into the technical aspect and they start to read up an article or two, they're looking to do a course, for example, the opportunities are very far and very limited. So we came up on the idea of food as something that would give every person across the globe something that they relate to. If I may ask you, Brian, what's your favorite food?
Oh wow, that's a good question. I think I don't know. I think probably something like pasta, like an Alfredo pasta. I always enjoy, or yeah,
Yeah, so let's say it's for the Alfredo pasta, right? So when you see that as an NFT, and we talk about a game where you have to collect the ingredients for that pasta, there is something relatable that comes from your life into the blockchain that kind of makes it easier for a first time user to kind of engage with it. We're talking about something so simple that all the maths books in school are, the fractions are taught with pies and apples and oranges. It's because people can understand things better with this really fun, easy example. And of course, me and my husband, we're big foodies. Food has been a large part of all our travel, all our lives. So it's just something that came naturally to us when we thought about a theme that could kind of bring people together. And of course, it keeps it fun on a daily basis as well, because we're not talking like boring terms. We're discussing about food fights and food truck wars. And yeah, it's just a really fun project to be in.
yeah. It sounds that way to me. Definitely, it's good to see something that's a bit more lighthearted. I do like that aspect of NFTs as well, where it's a little bit more just about the fun, relatable stuff that people can all connect with. So in this case, food being kind of a universal language, I guess, if you want to call it that,
Yes.
and just something that everybody can connect with. And I think it is very um, universalizing, I suppose.
Yes, exactly. I think it's just a theme that lets people be, and then they can have their own experience using this kind of food theme.
It sounds phenomenal. Um, and then, in terms of how it actually all works, though, I know you mentioned recipes, because ingredients, recipes, making the food. I'm assuming that's part of how this whole thing works. But can you tell me how the foodverse, how you guys envision it to work, and why people should be excited about this?
So when we started thinking about the foodverse, we just wanted to give every different kind of options to foodies across the world. Now there's a difference between being a chef and a foodie. Like I love to eat, but I'm not really happy to cook per se. But for some others, cooking and recipes is like a huge passion. So what we're building in our foodverse is multiple opportunities for users to kind of engage in different ways. For the gamers, there's an entire gamified aspect where they can collect ingredient NFTs, make their dish NFT, and then go to play food truck wars or Hippoful. We have a playground full of games where they can, earn more ore, for example, or just, have that kind of gamified experience. On the other hand, we also are collaborating with the global food and beverage industry and bringing those chefs and restaurants for the first time to Web3. So that creates this huge opportunity for global audiences to interact with chefs, to learn, like get access to recipes, to actually have a chance later to go to a restaurant and exchange their NFT for a real meal or deal as well. So I think when it comes to the foodverse, the only consistency we have is the theme of food. And we're looking to create different narratives around it. We have the Action Against Hunger movement that we're working on as well, where we want to create, small charity drives like a food fridge where people can stake their NFT, and we'll create a real food fridge for people to get food out of. So different aspects just tied together with the theme of food. So there's a bit of gaming, there's a bit of recipes, NFTs, collectibles, all of that thrown in the theme of food.
Well, it does sound like a metaverse to me. There's all of those aspects. I mean, it's not just an NFT project or a game. It's the whole package, and then connecting it with the real world as well, with actual utility, and giving people something that they can exchange for goods or services, for example. So I think that's kind of what the idea is tokenizing that experience. There's the whole aspect of social responsibility for blockchain projects. Can you tell me a little bit about, or can you tell me if OneRare has any intentions to combat hunger on a global scale? Because obviously that's a major problem in the world.
Yeah, I think as like to answer your first part, I think as the industry grows, social responsibility should be a large part of what organizations and projects can do. At the end of the day, this is the first industry that is completely transcending, borders and barriers. We are the first industry where you can effectively make a change in any part of the world if you choose to, and I think it's very important that projects can create a a cause, or go and try and do something good out of all that they're getting. Eventually, people talk about how games in Web3 are community driven because they're actually awarding the community for playing. The entire play to earn model, for example, it's not the game publisher earning, it's actually everybody who's playing the game. And in the same way, other projects that do well are also supported by their community, which comes from across the world. Coming to OneRare, because we're a theme around food, I think it made only natural sense for us to have the celebration of food be more meaningful. We're talking about all the happy aspects about how we want to celebrate chefs, we want to celebrate food from across the world, but we have to acknowledge the global hunger problem as well. And for that purpose, we are tied up, we're trying to tie up with the Crypto Relief Fund, with the UNICEF charity crypto fund as well. And a lot of chefs have their own charities that we want to work with, and in our small way make a difference, whether it's a part of our revenue, whether it's the initiatives that we carry, whatever little bit we can do, like the food fridge I mentioned before, just to make this project more meaningful for all of us as well. Because coming from India, we know what this means, we know the privilege we have versus those who don't, and it makes the project better for all of us who are working on it.
There's no doubt about that. I think one aspect I do really like about NFT projects and in crypto in general, especially lately, is that there is this desire to actually give back to the world, not just take all the earnings and run.
Yeah.
Well, at least in some projects, in reputable, transparent projects, I'm seeing that. But I like that how it's community based, as you said. People are able to participate in this, and they're able to, as a community, vote on how they want to make the world a better place. And I find that very profound. So I do really like it on that basis. So even just from that aspect of, you should support this because you can actually do something meaningful, I think that's amazing. that to me
Thank
always is.
you.
I'm like that's great. Then that's the use case right there. Is that if it can actually affect, because I think a lot of the time money it goes off somewhere and you think it's being used in a certain way, but then
Yeah.
it disappears and
Yeah.
there's no
And I
trace of
think
it.
blockchain
And
is brilliant for that traceability.
absolutely, I was about to say with an immutable ledger, you can't really. Um, it's hard. It's much harder to get away with that sort of thing. It's got to land up somewhere,
Exactly.
and and everybody can see where it goes.
Yeah.
Whereas now in the legacy system, it just sort of disappears, and it's like, oh well, nobody knows what happened. Sorry, too bad.
Yeah.
So seeing, because I think if we can get around that, then we could actually start to see some actual change in the world. And I think that's something we desperately need to get onto. So that's great that OneRare has that in mind.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Looking at your guys' social media pages and your community, it looks like your Twitter's growing quite substantially. I watch it on the daily, just watching the number tick up, and I've obviously been in your Discord. What is the OneRare community like? What's your experience with them?
I think because the topic is food, and food is something everybody has an opinion on, right? Whether it's a 2-year-old who will refuse to eat what they're being served, whether they're 92, everybody has an opinion on food. And I think the OneRack community is this really good mix of avid blockchain gamers, people who know everything about gaming and who are ready to, kind of start playing, as well as first time users. We're noticing a lot of people, especially when we were closer to our IDO and people were trying to, go to the launch pads. We noticed a fair bit of first time users, first time blockchain users, and, people trying to set up their wallets. So it's quite an interesting mix. Definitely very food opinionated for sure. We've had our bunch of those conversations and food fights, but it's a very nice supportive community, and hopefully we'll soon be able to start, showing them more of the game and getting them excited for that as well. But yes, of course, they've been really good, and a special shout out to our social media team also that works very hard to keep them engaged.
So I know you mentioned your partner, your husband, but who else is there anybody else part of? I know you mentioned your social media team, and in fact, I even know one of your Discord mods. I think Raiku. I
Yes.
was quite, when I saw him. I actually spoke to him and I said, "Are you a mod here?" He said, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, that's fantastic. That's great, man. Good to see you." But who else is actually part of the team, and what are their roles? Could you tell me about them, if there is
Yeah.
anybody?
Yeah, so we basically, I mean, because we're building a food verse and it's kind of growing in every direction. So we've been adding to our team very rapidly now. And of course, we have
Mm.
the social media team for Twitter, Facebook. We have the moderators, of course, who are brilliant at their job. But we also have the full tech team. So we have 5 developers on board with us who are building the food verse and the gaming aspect out. We have a marketing team as well. So Gaurav, my co-founder, comes from an engineering background, but he's been a marketer and a growth hacker for the last 10 years. He was actually head of the Dash developer program as well. So he looks into the entire tech and marketing aspect for OneRare, whereas I handle the design and community. And then we have designers with us for all the NFTs, because I don't know whether you had a chance to look, but like at OneRare, what we're doing is we're working with artists from across the world to actually create all the ingredient NFTs and the dish NFTs, because we kind of wanted this to be more of a people's project than just being computer generated or something. So yeah, so we have a full, like, in entirety we're about 18 people full time right now on OneRare,
Hmm.
in different aspects, and then of course we work with agencies for PR and for things like that. So the team is growing every day. It's an interesting experience to keep onboarding people.
I mean, did you ever really envision this sort of getting as big as it is already? I mean, what is it like for you? It must be a bit surreal, as you said. You started out January, February, and now we've careened along at this crazy velocity, and now here we are in December, and just looking retrospectively, I'm sure it must be like, wow, that's like mind blowing stuff to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said this before. A month in blockchain is like a year of real life. Every time I live through a month, we had our IDO on the 30th of November, and I could not believe where I was on the 1st of that month. So when we started in Jan, to be honest, like I said, CryptoPunks was just about breaking out. And I was like, let's do something around food, because what if, people can collect ingredients to make a dish? that was it. That was the thought beginning to end. And now it has evolved rapidly every month. So yes, it's very strange to think about where we were at the beginning of the year. But like, I think the opportunity of being the first food people, the chance to, then have the food industry come in where chefs are interested in coming in, NFTs just grew hotter. And I mean, we were calling ourselves, like, we had planned the metaverse idea in, I think, August for us, and then Facebook came in and they're like, oh, we're Meta now. And I mean, then there was this whole thing about what Facebook says is the kind of Meta you should expect from people. So I think all in all, it's just been this whole journey of, taking food forward step by step, from being an NFT to a game to a food verse. And actually, I don't even know how 22 will go about, what will be by the end of that year.
It only really makes sense that you get people from communities with their own dishes and their own cultures getting involved, rather than it being some kind of copycat generative project and it's whatever. There's a lot of those, and some of them are really cool, but I think a lot of them are also just copying existing formulas and hoping to replicate the successes of other projects, which is kind of, I don't really feel that. I'm like, well, isn't innovation about doing your own thing and looking for opportunities and going, hey, like let's connect these pieces and how can we make them all fit together and make this, again, in this case, a metaverse. And I think it's evident that that's coming together quite rapidly, maybe even faster than you guys initially expected.
Yes.
And then in terms of the roadmap, obviously you're talking about having to push things forward because of just how rapidly things have progressed. But there's a number of items listed. So what really will be the focus for OneRare going into 2022? What will you guys be looking at specifically?
So I think there are three key aspects if I really think about it. The first and the most immediate one is to get the game out. So we're in our audits right now. We have a MVP version out, but we have the next big version that is ready with us. We're just getting it audited right now. So our first and immediate target is to be on mainnet with our basic game of having ingredients, being able to create the dishes. The second aim that we have is to onboard more and more of the food industry, give them that chance where they can interact with global audiences. And thirdly, of course, to actually have a use case for NFTs. I feel like as we go along, the collectible aspect of NFTs would change into one where people would seek more value of it. That value could come from the composability in other metaverses where, say, for example, we have some lovely partners like Viv, which is a wine-based project in Norway, and so they're actually creating their own space in the sandbox, and we'll be doing like a wine and cheese collaboration with them. So taking our NFTs to other metaverses, of course, and where people can use them, and giving them a real-life use case where you can, like I said, go swap it for your Alfredo pasta at a local restaurant. I think those are some of the key things that we would like to do: get the game version out, give people that chance to have NFTs and to sort of engage with them in the way they like to.
Obviously, we talked about the food industry a little bit and you want to onboard people from the food industry, and it spans the globe. So we're talking like it's a huge network. It's existed for years. Why exactly does it need a food verse, if I might ask?
So I think when we look at the food industry, there are of course some chefs like Gordon Ramsay that we've all heard of, wherever we are in the world. But then there are many, many more celebrated chefs in their local countries. Where you're based, for example, you would know that this is the top chef in your city or in your country, and that chef has an opportunity to monetize the audiences in that local area. But when we talk about a metaverse or a foodverse, that chef gets a chance to actually get global exposure, interact with global audiences, and have that chance where, tomorrow they can actually see that, okay, they seem to have developed an Australian fan following. So they can consider doing a pop-up restaurant in Australia or, having a metaverse experience for the fans there. So I think with the foodverse, chefs and even restaurants, let's say food brands later, let's say it's Heinz who wants to, maybe try out a new ketchup flavor, or they're looking to build a fan audience, and they can explore different areas and see what kind of areas responsive to a new launch. Maybe Burger King comes up with a new flavor, and then they can see, or maybe do a mass drop across all the metaverses, across the world, where people can go claim the first 500 burgers of a new flavor they've gotten out. So I think the reach, just changing that entire paradigm about not needing local advertising, whether they're coming to India, so they need to advertise locally here, or they're going to America, so they're doing it there. It gives them a chance to actually engage globally, see what audience works for them, and then work on monetizing them without the limitation of where they are.
Okay, so it's about, again, just extending people's experiences to across the globe, making a global
Yes.
society, and just bringing talent in the food space to the fore and to a global audience, which is a very interesting idea. Actually, I've never really thought of that before, but it makes a lot of sense. So on that basis, because I think that's the thing, is that for many people they'll never really get to experience so much of the world, especially now with the pandemic. It's a little, everything's
Yeah.
up in the air, so we're not
Yeah.
too sure about global travel. So if we can kind of, rather than them going to those places physically and having to incur all the expenses and go through all of that, rather bring the experiences to them and make it something that they can all identify with and enjoy. So I think
Yeah.
that's a very nice rationale for that, and I think just bringing more awareness to the food industry as well, and just its various components. I like the idea of burger airdrops. Just sounds cool. I don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think the chefs are actually very excited. Like, so the first phase of ours is to actually onboard chefs. We will be making another announcement tomorrow as well. But you can see, it's, at the end of the day, they're artists as well. You know, the love that they put out on the plate, the way they kind of bring
Mm.
that dish together. It's a very interesting creative experience for the chefs as well to actually reimagine their food in a, in a metaverse, in an NFT form, and just look at the opportunities there. So it's been a very unique and interesting experience to actually handhold these chefs. Some of them are very well versed with NFTs. They know everything that they need to. Some of them are not so well versed. So we kind of help them understand better about the opportunities in the space. And I think it's a huge industry. You know, whether we when we think about it, if we're able to create a system or a supply system where say local Spanish suppliers can actually start accessing bigger markets where they can send out shipments. It'll be a very interesting global play to bring this massive industry into the blockchain.
Can you tell me a little bit about some of your favorite projects that you've enjoyed or you find particularly interesting, and why you like them so much?
I think a lot of people are actually doing a lot of interesting stuff now. Frankly, I mean, for me, CryptoPunks is a brilliant project because A, they were the first to market. But what I find more interesting from a design point of view is that they have completely reimagined the bitmap pixel space. You know, as a designer, I know this may not be relevant to people commercially, but I find it so interesting that an NFT project has come in and completely changed the entire design paradigm, where so many projects till date are copying that pixel look, which is started by CryptoPunk. You know, so as a designer, I find that idea very interesting, that they chose something out of the blue and they've made a whole trend out of it. I think other than that, in terms of games, of course, Axie did, they have their own model and a lot of people have copied it. But I also find Sandbox to be a very interesting project. I think I've been seeing and observing Sandbox since a very early point in time. And I think I've seen their growth in terms of how they have, structurally grown it. And I think it's coming across in their partnerships as well now, you know, when they have Snoop Dogg on board, have Gordon Ramsay. So I think that project, Sebastian has done a brilliant job in kind of growing that to its rightful place. And I think there are a lot of small projects as well now that are coming up, which are, like you said, the social cause projects. There's a very interesting project that is not NFTs directly, but NREX, which is working on energy emissions, carbon emissions. And helping NFT projects like us reduce that. So I think NREX is also a very, very interesting project to watch out for because they're bringing social responsibility in.
All right, and then of course, there's we you kind of mentioned the whole thing with Facebook becoming Meta. What are your feelings about big brands and companies like Adidas and Facebook entering into the metaverse space?
So I think I think I have a two-layered opinion on this. The first, of course, is that it creates brilliant opportunity for people because more and more the day Facebook said Meta, everybody started Googling it, you know, and then suddenly the awareness level goes from like 10,000 people to 10 million people, where everybody knows the word, everybody gets a basic understanding of it. So I think when big brands come in, they do give more exposure to the industry, and they're coming in because they see the opportunity. I mean, they're not blind to knowing how fast blockchain audiences are moving. So obviously they see this huge opportunity to come in. I think with regards to Facebook, I do feel like it's been stamped too strongly by them as to what a metaverse should be. Like I said before, I think there are a lot of native, crypto natives in the space who have their own ideas going for the metaverse, whether it is Decentraland, Sandbox. And I think there should be that flexibility and creativity going forward, where a metaverse can be whatever the project owner, or the creative forces are envisioning it to be, rather than what Facebook says it's supposed to look like. But yeah, all in all, I think the big brands are coming because the opportunity is here. It's going to happen sooner or later for every single brand. These are the early mover brands comparatively, I would say, that have come in. Uh, so it should be an interesting play for them as well as for people who are already building on the blockchain, because there is an inherent understanding of the industry right now, that people who've been here before have. Therefore, for a lot of people, this is their first bull wave. And it's a very interesting experience for somebody like me who's been through a bear wave as well, to kind of see how people react right now to every project Xing so many times. And they're seeing these graphs that tell them that the money is booming and all that. So I think a bull and a bear would kind of, you need to live one of each wave to know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you definitely have to. You have to go through a bull market and a bear market, and you have to be around. I've been around since about 2018, so I know the pain of a bear market quite strongly. But it's good to see that it's all come back up.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it's very good that it's bringing awareness to the space for sure. It does feel a bit weird because it's like, well, a lot of this is being created to get away from
Yeah.
conventional models of thinking and
Yeah.
centralization and dictatorial platforms that go, okay, well, you can't do that because we don't like it or we
Yeah.
don't think it's going to be good. Whereas with Sandbox, like you said, which is a great project, it's like pretty much anything goes. It's like you can
Yeah.
create your own world. You have the freedom to express yourself in whatever way you see fit using the tools available to you, and it just brings in a whole lot of creativity from across the space. And that's really what I find so incredible about NFT projects and the metaverse is that it's just so many creative people are coming together and pooling their skills and talents, and they're just creating something that's just very profound. And I don't think that's ever really happened before. So Supreet, I think this has been a fantastic chat, and it's been wonderful having you on board. Before we close off, is there anything that you'd like to share with everyone out there in the cryptosphere and the world at large?
No, I think that was a great chat. So thank you firstly for having me, Brian. Had a wonderful time talking to you. And in terms of sharing, I think just thankful for all the support we've gotten till now for OneRare. And if anybody who's unaware of the food metaverse we're building, would request them to come and join us, join our journey as we continue to build it. And yeah, just bring your happy thoughts, bring your love for food to OneRare, and we're more than happy to have you. So yeah, just that's about that from our end.
Bravo, bravo. Well, everybody, that was Supreet Raju of OneRare. Make sure that you check out the project, all their social media platforms. They're on Twitter. You can catch them on their website. Join their Discord. This is definitely a project you want to follow. So I don't think you want to miss out on this one. Again, Supreet, thank you very much for joining us today. And I'm sure, I really do hope that we get to chat again very soon.
For sure. With some food and cocktails. Thank you for having me, Brian.